Our story begins with a shady space research corporation that secretly engineered a horrific pathogen gas. When an animal breathes this gas, it triggers a massive hormonal mutation, transforming them into a giant, hyper-aggressive monster. To keep this illegal experiment hidden from the world, the company tested it on a laboratory rat aboard a space station. They figured if things went wrong, it would be far away from Earth. But guess what? Things went horribly wrong. The mutated rat turned into a killing machine, slaughtering the entire crew except for one female scientist. Desperate to survive, she grabbed the gas canisters and fled into an escape pod just seconds before the station was destroyed. But her luck ran out. The immense pressure cracked the pod's weak glass windows, causing it to explode during re-entry. The pod disintegrated, scattering the highly dangerous gas canisters all over the planet. Down on Earth, we meet Davis, a retired military officer who used to hunt down illegal poachers. Now, he manages a wildlife sanctuary filled with animals he rescued from certain death. Among them is George, a gentle, kind-hearted albino silverback gorilla. Davis actually taught George sign language so they could easily communicate and understand each other. But peace doesn't last long. In the middle of the night, glowing fragments from the space pod streak across the sky. One canister crashes right into Davis's sanctuary, and George accidentally inhales the leaking gas. Another canister lands deep in a forest where a wolf inhales it. A third plummets into a river right next to an alligator. The very next day, Davis is called urgently to the sanctuary because George is acting completely out of character. When Davis arrives, he is shocked to find a dead bear and realizes George killed it. George's behavior is erratic, unpredictable, and worst of all, his size has visibly grown. George tries to explain what's happening using sign language, but Davis just can't comprehend it yet. Meanwhile, they discover the broken canister in the enclosure and rush it to the lab for testing. At the same time, the corrupt CEO of the research company is throwing a massive tantrum, smashing things because his multi-billion-dollar project literally went up in flames. But his calculating sister, Claire, stops him. She reveals that the gas survived inside specialized, reinforced pods. Hearing reports of mysterious meteor crashes, she realizes the gas is out there and orders a team to retrieve it immediately. Enter Kate, a brilliant geneticist. She watches the CEO lying to reporters on television, claiming this gene-editing technology was meant to cure diseases and help humanity. The corporation dispatches a highly trained mercenary team to the crash site, but when they arrive, they find an empty, broken container. Suddenly, they stumble upon a pack of dead wolves. They realize one wolf inhaled the gas and slaughtered its own pack. Claire orders them to bring this wolf back, dead or alive, before the government finds out. The team tracks the creature, but the mutated wolf ambushes them with terrifying speed, wiping out the entire squad. In the final moments, the last surviving mercenary looks up as the giant wolf corners him. It's like the wolf is asking, "Do you want to be eaten plain, or should I order a side dish with you?" The terrifying answer. The mercenary just stares in horror as the monster leaps. Back at the sanctuary, Davis runs blood tests on George. He is stunned to find astronomical levels of growth hormones. George is going to keep growing indefinitely, and his aggression will only get worse. Kate arrives at the facility just as George completely loses control. Trapped and terrified, George smashes through his enclosure and goes on a wild rampage in the streets. Davis tries desperately to calm his friend down. The police and military arrive in full force, eventually taking George down with a heavy barrage of tranquilizer darts. The military chains George inside a massive cargo plane to transport him and analyze his DNA. They also arrest Davis and Kate for withholding information. Davis warns the arrogant colonel in charge. The tranquilizers won't last. Her metabolism is burning through them at a terrifying speed. But the colonel scoffs, saying, "I know exactly what I'm doing." Meanwhile, the villains, Claire and her brother, realize they are about to lose everything. They activate a backup plan, a powerful low-frequency radio beacon from the top of their skyscraper in Chicago. This specific frequency is hardwired to trigger a homing instinct in the mutated animals, driving them into an absolute frenzy. Mid-flight, George hears the signal. He instantly snaps out of his sedation, breaks his heavy chains, and tears through the soldiers. The plane starts ripping apart in midair. In the absolute chaos, Davis manages to grab parachutes. He secures the unconscious colonel, hooks up Kate, and they safely eject just seconds before the entire plane explodes into a fireball. After a rough landing, they find no trace of George and realize he survived the crash. As they walk, Kate looks at Davis's perfectly styled hair and asks, "Do you actually put product in your hair?" Davis replies, "No, just a little leave-in conditioner when it gets frizzy." Davis then reveals his deep bond with George. 3 years ago, he found George hiding under a vehicle, watching poachers brutally murder his mother. Davis saved him, and they've been family ever since. Together with Kate, they decide to infiltrate the corporation's headquarters in Chicago to steal the antidote and save George. They cross paths with the colonel again. Recognizing that Davis saved his life on the plane, the colonel decides to trust them and gives them the keys to a military chopper. Davis jumps in, but realizes he doesn't quite remember how to take off. He hilariously yells to the colonel, "Can you give us a push?" They arrive in Chicago, but the city is eerily quiet. Suddenly, a military jet is swatted out of the sky right next to them. The monsters have arrived. George and the giant wolf are tearing through the streets, destroying everything in their path, entirely focused on reaching the tower to shut off that agonizing beacon. To make matters worse, the military detects a third massive signal moving through the river. It's a colossal, mutated crocodile. The army fires everything they have, but their weapons don't even scratch its armor. Davis tells Kate, "We have to get to the lab right now and find that antidote." They successfully break into the lab and secure 3 vials of the antidote, one for each monster. But just as they turn around, Claire ambushes them at gunpoint. Kate manages to secretly slip 1 vial into her pocket while giving Claire the other 2. Claire coldly shoots Davis in the stomach and takes Kate hostage, heading up to the roof. By this time, the monsters have scaled the skyscraper. George breaks onto the roof, completely crazed. Davis, surviving the gunshot wound, rushes up just in time to save Kate from being crushed. As Claire tries to escape, holding them at gunpoint, Kate pulls off a brilliant move. She knocks the gun from Claire's hand, shoves the hidden antidote into Claire's purse, and pushes her directly into George's path. In a blind rage, George snatches Claire and swallows her whole, along with the antidote. The massive building begins to structurally collapse under the weight of the monsters. Davis and Kate manage to hop into a damaged helicopter on the roof, riding the falling building down like a crashing elevator, miraculously surviving the impact. As the dust settles, the antidote finally kicks in. George regains his true consciousness, his eyes softening as he recognizes Davis. He's no longer aggressive, though he's still a giant. But the battle isn't over. The mutated wolf and the mountain-sized crocodile are still alive and ready to slaughter everyone. Davis looks at George and says, "We need to stop them before they wipe out the city." George charges into battle. He tackles the wolf, but the massive crocodile joins the fight and overpowers him. Davis uses his brains. He hops into a wrecked military chopper, fires its heavy guns at the wolf, and baits it into charging directly at the crocodile. The plan works perfectly. The giant crocodile snaps its jaws shut, decapitating the wolf in one bite. But now, the crocodile turns its sights on Davis. George throws himself into the fray to protect his friend, taking a brutal beating from the crocodile's massive tail. Refusing to let his best friend die, Davis grabs a grenade launcher from the wreckage, firing directly into the crocodile's open wounds to distract it. George uses that exact window of opportunity. He grabs a sharp piece of rebar and drives it directly through the crocodile's eye, killing the apex predator once and for all. With the threat eliminated, George collapses to the ground, closing his eyes. Davis rushes over, calling out his name, but George doesn't respond. Heartbroken, Davis believes his best friend is gone. Kate and the Colonel walk over to comfort him, telling him they need to move out. Davis nods sadly, but as he turns around, he notices George cracking one eye open and making a hilarious, inappropriate hand gesture. The giant gorilla was just faking his death to mess with him. Davis laughs and calls him a big, bald jerk. Together, they save the world, and Davis promises to take George to a beautiful new home. And that is the end of our movie. See you in the next recap. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a beautiful like to support us so we can keep making these awesome videos for you.